This video is going to be our guide for the Thing inside Marvel Rivals. We've had a couple of days now to see how this hero should actually be played, and that is why we've made this guide a few days later. Starting off with the basics first, as we always do, and if you want to skip ahead in this video, you absolutely can to some of the more advanced stuff. But when it comes to his Rocky Jab, he deals 40 damage per strike, and he strikes in basically 2, which means it's 80 damage per burst that he deals. Now this is only a 4-meter range, so you pretty much need to be point blank, but there's some special tech to this that you need to know. Next is a Stone Haymaker, which has got a 10-meter distance. He moves forward 3 meters, and 8 meters of this is just the range of the attack itself. It charges up, and then he deals a punch. So as you can see there, does 90 damage as well, which is quite a lot. On top of that, he gains 50 bonus health by doing this. So if you basically keep spamming this, you basically get 50 health. But by the time you've used it the second time, to be honest, it kind of depletes very quickly. The next ability he has is his Embattled Leap, which basically has a 20-meter range, and he can jump onto teammates, providing a 30% damage reduction for himself and for the teammate he jumps to. He can do this twice as well, by the way. His next ability is the Yancey Street Charge, which is actually his main ability, which gives him 200 HP shields. It slams the ground, slowing enemies down so they can't use any mobility tools to actually escape the radius. And it also knocks enemies up into the air, right? So that's kind of obviously the main part of this ability. So you basically knock enemies in the air, and then you slam the ground and they can't move. The Thing's passive ability is very important as well. So as you can see, he cannot be moved by movement-based attacks. So this is going to be Winter Soldier's Grapple or Wolverine's Feral Leap. None of these will basically move the Thing. We've made a whole video on what can and can't move the Thing, so if you want to check that out at the end of this one, you can. And finally, we have his ultimate ability, which has an 18-meter range and slams the ground whilst dealing 100 damage and knocking enemies up into the air. This is probably one of the most simplest ultimate attacks, to be fair, and his kit in general is very simple to begin with. Let's get on into some of the additional details and combos that you can do with the Thing, and then we'll go on to talk about how you actually want to use this hero and play with him. So first of all, you do want to have the hold to dash set to on. Even if you're on controller, this is the best setting to use. Also, you want the Embattled Leap sensitivity to be 100%. Now, this one is optional, but I do recommend having it on as well, which is the attack range hint, and I'll explain why right now. Even though the Thing's damage radius is 4 meters, that actually kind of extends to the side of the enemy as well. So as you can see here, even though we're not aiming at the enemy here, just because we're at close range, basically if you punch the enemy at close range anywhere, you're still dealing some kind of damage, even though you're not really looking in their direction. The enemy stops glowing. So that's what the attack range hint does. So it basically shows you what range you can be in to actually deal damage in the first place. Now, the reason you want hold to dash is because you can instantly just slam the ground if you need to. This is going to stop enemies moving around, and it means you don't need to actually use the charge. Now, I highly recommend you do use the charge because it's a very pivotal part of its kit. But even if you're in a pinch and you need to just use this, you can pretty much press the button, slam the ground, and that is you done. Now, here's a quick combo you could do with the Thing. Now, it might not always be useful, but is good at taking down a good chunk of health and not allowing enemies to escape. So essentially, you want to charge the Haymaker punch, jump, slam the ground, and then finish the enemy off with as many melee attacks as you have, or you can use his charge punch again, obviously get some HP shields back as well. Once you've dealt damage though, what you can actually do is use his jump to escape as well, and that's really how you want to use that. The next step that's not stated on the website, and it's probably why this ability feels so much stronger than it actually sounds, is because you're actually invincible during the time of this run. You don't take any damage whatsoever, because that orange HUD across your health bar means that you're not taking any damage at all, whether it's ultimates, whether it is basically any attack whatsoever, you're not taking damage whilst you're in this running state. So you can actually use it defensively as well. So basically just run straight into enemies even though they're firing an ult at you, which makes it extremely powerful, more powerful than most people actually think. Now, this Street Charge is such a powerful tool. Now, as you can see, this chronovision shows you which walls are breakable in this game, and this is going to come really handy when we're getting on into the gameplay tips. But as you can see, you can basically run straight through walls with this hero, so it needs to be the walls that are breakable. But other heroes take a little while before they can actually break this, but when it comes to the Thing, you can basically just charge straight through this thing, and that is pretty much it. You can't stop him at this point. So for the Thing, there's 2 ways to play this hero, and I think the ways that you play him depend on whether or not you have a competent healer on your team or not. Now, if you do have a competent healer on your team, then you can play the more fun way, with the thing. And the best way I like to do this is that if you have a flying hero on your team, basically what you like to do is use your jump ability to initiate your fight by grappling onto them, giving them the 30% damage reduction or whatever it is, but mainly for that big jump to dive straight down onto the enemy team. Then what you do is you displace them with your charge, and obviously during this time you're not going to take any damage anyway, so you're still full health by this whole kind of movement action. And then obviously you're going to do some damage and then hopefully leave after that. Now, if whilst you're doing damage your dash is recharged, then obviously you want to use that to escape. If not, then what you'll do is you'll use your jump to escape to a close teammate. And that is the best way and the most fun way to use this hero. And if you've got a good healer on your team that's basically watching you kind of do all this stuff, and because you are a Vanguard, it's quite easy to heal as well, then you can pretty much stay in the fight almost indefinitely. It feels like you almost don't ever die with the thing because of his survivability attacks and things like that. He's actually pretty strong in that aspect, so you can pretty much last all day in a fight. Now, for the second way you should play the thing, and obviously you can mix and match this throughout the game because scenarios are going to be different every time, but if you're playing at high level, then this is probably the way you want to play the thing. And if you're playing basically without a decent healer on your team as well, this is probably the way you want to play as well. So essentially what you're playing as a disruptor slash distraction, and basically you want to play similar to like a dive hero like a Wolverine or a Thor, for example, where you're kind of waiting for the enemy team to push forward, you dive into their backline, but instead of trying to deal as much damage as possible, what you're trying to do is displace the enemy as much as possible. So you want to use your charge ability, displace their players out of position as much as you can, and you're pretty much immune to most CC things anyway, so you can pretty much keep running with that charge and you'll be pretty good. You need to know how to control the charge. On controller is a little bit difficult, to be honest, but you need to know how to master this to make the most out of it. You don't want to just run in one straight line and that's you done. You want to kind of go back in and out as much as you can for however long the dash lasts, which is quite a lengthy amount of time, to be honest. So that is how you want to disrupt the enemy backline. You can even break through some of the walls if you use the chrono vision and basically flank into the enemy team that way as well, like we mentioned earlier on in the guide. So that is another way you could flank into the enemy's backline. Now, there's some heroes you do want to avoid when it comes to the thing, and after just a short amount of time playing with this hero, to be honest, I think Penny Parker is a really good counter to this hero. Now, even though he doesn't get basically moved by any hero, Penny Parker can still stun him and she can still use the mines, so you're still going to take damage if you're in the enemy's backline. So I think Penny Parker is an extremely solid counter, so you want to avoid that. And also you want to avoid the other team's thing if they have one, and obviously right now, because he's a popular hero, you're going to encounter a lot of thing vs thing battles because you cannot displace the other enemy's thing. So that's just something that I do want to mention. Those are the kind of two main counters I've came across that are quite strong when it comes to the thing. When it comes to like dive heroes and stuff, he's actually pretty good against these, because once you basically slam the ground and allow them not to move, basically they can't use any of the dive capabilities to get out of the way, so that way he's pretty powerful. In terms of his ultimate, by itself, I don't really think it's that strong, to be honest, so you can just use it offensively whenever you kind of need to. I do think it's really good for comboing with a Moon Knight ultimate because it does stun enemies in place, so that is something you can use, kind of similar to like a Doctor Strange ultimate where the Eye of Agamotto kind of stuns enemies for a little while. This can also work in a similar way. I don't think it's really going to output tons of damage and get you loads of kills, but it is definitely a good setup ultimate. So that is all the tips. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.